Hello, I am Shiv Shankar Pal. This is Strategy Learning Course, and this is a part 2, episode 2, the describe stage of strategy. How can I describe, or how can we describe any business strategy? So, we will learn and we will deep dive into that topic. So, as a business professional, it is critically important for you to be able to describe a company's business strategy for the last two reasons. At least two reasons. Every company has a strategy, but not every company has clearly articulated that strategy. And unfortunately, not all companies even fully understand the strategy that they implement every day. We are always a bit shocked by how frequently executives struggle to answer some of our most basic questions about their business strategies. But even when companies are not sure of their own strategies, they still accept you as employees to act in a way to support their strategies. In our experience, employees who adds real value to the customer to businesses are able to describe the real strategy of their businesses and then map their own job activities to the company strategy. This mapping helps them to see more clearly how their own work on a daily basis align with the needs of the businesses and also helps employees to develop clear no criteriations for their own work. When you can see clearly how your works maps to your company strategy, you can also see which tasks in your job are most critical and which tasks are least critical. You can better focus on limited work time and attention on the tasks that are most critical to support your company's strategy. Okay, this kind of decision making tends to make you shine as an employee. And second, even if your company has a clearly defined and described strategy, you still have competitors in your industry that you need to consider. As you analyze your competitor to determine their next strategic moves, you will need to be able to quickly and clearly describe their strategies. Doing so will help you see what actions they are most likely to take in the competitive marketplace. Describing your competitors' strategies can also help you identify their strengths and weaknesses. You may not want to attack their strength, but their weaknesses may suggest useful opportunities. What are the tools or frameworks might a strategist be using at this stage? This is where fundamental what is strategy strategy framework are essentials. Some examples of comprehensive framework including the four question models, diamond framework, and business model canvas. These approaches all captures the core element of strategy in organized way. In addition, other basic tools or approaches are helpful are competitive landscape maps, value chain analysis, industry classifications, market segmentations, and analysis. Business plans and visions or mission statement can all be useful in describing a strategy. As you become proficient with tools such as these in your business studies, your capabilities to describe a strategy will increase as well. Framework examples like on Apple's iPhone. Let's illustrate an approaches to describe strategy by applying a simple framework to an incredibly important strategy that we may know now take for granted. Apple's iPhone businesses. Looking back to 2007, the year after the initial iPhone release, we might describe their smartphone business strategy in this way. Apple's compete in the emerging global smartphone market by offering a high-end, tightly integrated, easy-to-use, beautifully designed device that did more jobs for customers than any existing phone device on the market. It further differentiated its smartphone by ensuring seamless integration with its other business lines of hundred hardwares like macOS and software like iTunes. Apple's compete aggressively in this market through superior R&D, means research and development capabilities that facilitate the continued release of devices that stayed ahead of competitor in both design quality and ease of use. They also leverages best-in-class marketing to enhance and expanded the Apple's brand. Note that this brief description of Apple cover the basic strategy questions of where a business will compete and how they will win against the competitions and what resources and capabilities are central to the strategy. Such a strategy statement makes it clear that Apple will likely invest heavy in design, technology, R&D and branding, but also makes it clear that Apple will not do. These strategy statements clearly excluded bringing out a low-end commodity smartphone. Apple's strategy seems focused on the high-end consumers, and we should be able to easily exclude any effort to focus on the low end customer and low end market. We would hope that all internal Apple's leaders and managers would constantly make decisions to reinforce and support this particular strategy. How this illustration helps. Now, these articulations of Apple's 2007 smartphone businesses strategy may seem very high level and somewhat abstracted for the average Apple employees. But consider a few ways in which even this high level understanding of the strategy might help. First, consider an entry level business analyst who receives an assignment to spend a few months analyzing Apple's supply chain to identify the greatest cost cutting opportunities. This seems like a perfectly reasonable and very normal request for any businesses, and many analysts might happily to accept the job and move forward. But what happens if the analyst respectfully phrases back and asks his bosses why? For example, he might say something like, I am excited about these new opportunities and look forward to finding opportunities. But do you mind clearly something about me? Why? My understanding is that as a business, we are really focused on differentiating our product through design and quality, and in many cases cutting cost can get in a way to improving products. Will you help me to connect the dots to see how this project ties in with the overall strategy of the businesses? This will help me focus my analysis in a way that will create the most value. The bosses could respond with a very clear explanations of how this project ties in, or the boss might not have a clear answer and instead questions her own bosses about why they are being asked to explore cost cutting given the underlying strategy of the businesses. Regardless of the answer, the bosses sees that our analyst as a strategic thinker who will appropriately question work task, someone who wants to add the uh, right kind of value and who will make the initiatives to find out how to add values. Additionally, our analyst has created a small but important alignment movement in the businesses where he and his bosses make sure that they are aligned in their effort to support the right outcome for the businesses. Employees who did this respectfully at the right time and in the right places tends to get promoted quickly. Now we are not encouraging you to question your everything your bosses ask you to do, but we are trying to make the point that when you understand the strategy of the businesses, you are well positioned to appropriately questions at the right times. The second way this high level understanding of strategy may help is if your competitor to Apple in the smartphone space is considered. For example, if you were a low end and low price cell phone manufacturer hoping to enter the smartphone market after the release of the iPhone, you hope is to be the fast follower to Apple and bring out a phone that is more affordable to the average consumer. By analyzing Apple's strategy, you might see clearly that Apple has no intention to compete in the low end segment of the market. And thus, you might be able to enter with little fear that Apple will retaliate and trying to compete with you head to head. In other words, clearly understanding the strategy of your competitor will help you see the current and future white spaces in the competitive marketplace. The conclusion of this audio is the whether you are describing your own strategy or strategy of your competitor, being able to quickly and clearly describe how and why a business succeed is a critical foundational step to becoming a great strategist. With this fundamental knowledge, you can then move to diagnosing, developing and deploying effective strategists.